Welcome back, everybody. We're here for Game 4, Round 4 of the NorQuest Esports series, which is brought to you by NorQuest College, who has a very quickly growing esports scene. League of Legends, Valorant, Rocket League, Smash, you name it, they've got it. Their community server is a host to so many of these games and many more. Join the NorQuest community at the link in the panel listed below the stream. RMC, we took a bit of a extended break here, but it was for good reason. The matchup that we were kind of waiting on was Wildcard Red against Wildcard Black, the be-all, end-all Wildcard Civil War. And I mean, that was just a crazy game. I'm a little bit disappointed that we weren't able to see it on stream.
Yeah, and we saw Wildcard Black in round 2, just the round before, and they really looked quite good in that matchup there. They just absolutely dominated. When they had a lead, they snowballed it. And from what I could tell of their round 3 in that Civil War, Wildcard Black was actually up. They were pushing, they were punishing Wildcard Red, who once again, I repeat, is the triple crown champion currently of Tier 2. And it looked like they should have won until Bradley changed it. Bradley with the backdoor. Don't call it an X-Spec, call it a Bradley, because it's the second time. Yeah. Is it this week that he's pulled it off? He did the exact same thing to AOE. And speaking of AOE, they're the other undefeated team. We are getting a rematch of the Tier 2 EGL finals here.
Yeah, and I think it's safe to say that there's a whole lot of different circumstances that come into this game versus the EGL finals. Wildcard did take that series in a 3-0 fashion last Tuesday, but the big factor here was RBM, really big meme, who we saw in the last game, was not present for that matchup. And so that with their coach subbed in, Wildcard had an easier route to the finals, and AOE has been a team that has proven themselves to be at the top of semi-pro, and it was unfortunate the situations that unfolded that led to Wildcard Red having that easy road against them, and AOE didn't really get their chance to prove themselves, but in this game, I think they definitely have a shot.
And I think that both these teams will want to actually try hard this game to prove that really, for Wildcard, that they deserve that win, and for AOE to prove to themselves, if nothing else, that they could have won. I mean, it's the best of one, so anything can happen. But if you can win one, you can win 3, right? That's the logic, right, Grapes?
Exactly. I mean, that should be the logic here, but obviously best of ones, anything really can happen. And here in the Swiss format, getting these wins here are very important. These are the 2 top teams in this NorQuest Esports series. Honestly, not super surprising considering these guys were literally in a Tier 2 Proving Grounds final just 5 days ago. So makes sense that they're up here. I'm really excited to see these Titans clash here and what could potentially be a preview of a playoff series later on.
Yeah, now both these teams have qualified into the T1s, and both these teams throughout this tournament so far have looked really good. Granted, Wildcard Red has had slightly longer games, but that is how they like to play. When we look at this Wildcard roster, they have a lot of strength in all the lanes. I mean, Winston in their jungle, often with Brandini nowadays, has been enabling their early game, and Bradley's mechanics are incredible. We talked about the fact that he backdoored multiple times, both on the LeBlanc, by the way. But he's just great on any sort of assassin pick, on any sort of mechanical pick, things like the Irelia, like the LeBlanc here, like the Silas. And of course, the bot lane for Wildcard Red is their most famous piece, Daption supporting Arrow. And Arrow, former LCK player, former LCS player. Yes, it's that Arrow. And he's been absolutely just crushing all the bot lanes and coming up against them for AOE. RBM, Dark Wings, we just saw them last game. This is a mid-jungle duo that can take over games, but Sketch Dreams as their AD carry. I mean, he made the Vayne work into, frankly, a composition which should have been able to absolutely punish it. Sketch Dreams has been a monster as an AD carry, and I want to see him go up against Arrow with a proper jungler this time.
Yeah, and while Raheen and Rhino are a formidable bot lane of their own, definitely are not at the same caliber, in my opinion, as Arrow and Daption. They have looked like the best bot lane in the North American semi-pro scene. I'm really excited to see how they do it in this game, and also as they move forward into Proving Grounds. I mean, when you have an LCS MVP on your team, you're probably going to play through that position. And so for Wildcard, a lot of the focus could be around this bot lane. But as you said before, this mid lane matchup is really interesting. Bradley has looked incredibly great as this young prospect in a team of veterans here for Wildcard. And I'm excited to see how he goes up against Dark Wings. And in the last series that they played, what's a bit one-sided, mostly probably due to that jungle matchup that ended up unfolding. But now that they're on even footing, I'm really excited to see these 2 young stars finally get a fair fight.
Yeah, and for the side of AOE, I mean, Darkwings is an amazing player, was considered one of the top prospects as well. Early on, though, much more storied history, has played for longer than Bradley, but it's really been about this jungle mid duo, right? And without RBM there to enable Darkwings, it's not the same. Now you do have RBM. There's the question of RBM versus Winston as well, because Winston, we talked about the fact that he enables this team fairly early on, and that's extremely important for a carry player like Bradley to get the isolated lane or to get the help he needs when he wants it. It's not so much Bradley enabling Winston, it's usually the other way around. Whereas for AoE, it's a bit more synergistic. Darkwings does roam out to help RBM quite a bit here. And I'm curious to see how this works out, whether assisting your jungler or assisting your mid is going to be more important. Now, the one lane we haven't touched on, Grapes, top side, Brandini versus Faisal. Brandini, they used to have Dokla in the top lane for Wildcard Red, and then Dokla got picked up, and now they put in Brandini. But Brandini has been playing great. People called him a budget Dokla at first. Not really. I think he's not just a budget Dokla. He actually fulfills pretty much the exact same role, has a very similar champion pool, has been really strong as well. Faisal, on the other hand, has been, to me, an amazing weak side laner. Like, whenever he's on weak side, he'll find some way to be relevant. Strong side, though, has been a little bit hit or miss, and I would like to see the team put him on a champion that is the strong side, and I want to see him, being given opportunities to try and carry through that top lane, which often becomes that 1v1 island.
Yeah, and Brandini has been a really strong player for Wildcard Red, and that just shows how strong of a team they are, stacked from top to bottom with talent that can do well, get kills, and carry these games. We are headed into the draft here for game 1 of this best of 1, actually. So going to be a little bit of a different perspective than the finals that we had here at EGL. But Brandini, instead of going for that more carry-oriented pick, going to go for this Tahm Kench up into the top lane. And instead, it's going to be matched up here against this Trundle for Faisal, which is definitely a really exciting pick.
That is the strong side for Trundle. Trundle should be able to win this. And Faisal just played into a Tahm Kench as well. If we recall back to Zeus, Aloran played the Tahm Kench, and it was Faisal on the Karma, which did manage to win. Not just go even, but win the lane in what should have been a rough matchup. Now, with the counter pick, with this Trundle as well, I expect to see more of the same. Speaking of which, Irelia being picked up for Bradley here. Remember I said LeBlanc, Silas, Irelia. These are champions that Bradley really performs well on. So I'm very excited to see this particular pick up, and it's running into a set.
Well, this is the same matchup that we saw in game 3, but reversed. Darkwings, instead of being on the Aurelia, will be on the opposite side of the matchup. We saw how well he was able to, counter that matchup that Tuesday set up against him, but we'll see if he's going to be able to have that sort of impact that he had in this game on the other side of this matchup. Important to note, we are not using we're not looking at the correct draft. They're picking in positional order, so some of the bans might look a little bit confusing here, considering that the top laners have already been picked. We already see Gwen and Sejuani taken away, for instance. But interesting to note that this set was picked really early on in the draft, but it was because Bradley picked up this Aurelia with that first pick. So it's just interesting to see how the draft actually ended up turning out. And looking at the final compositions, we're going to see that Varus here for Arrow, which has been a very, very crucial pick for him.
I feel like Arrow goes through phases. He had his Aphelios phase where he was just constantly picking that, regardless of the matchup he was running into. And I feel right now he's on a bit of a Varus kick. I mean, Aphelios isn't, they banned Aphelios themselves, but they picked the Varus before banning the Aphelios. Now he's on a Varus kick, and it's hard to argue. I mean, the guy's called Arrow for a reason.
Exactly.
Champ with piercing arrow.
I mean, he's looked really good in all those games. I think he's played Varus either 2 or 3 times already today even, and has popped off in basically every game that he has had on this champion. So playing this with Daption's Leona against Sketchstreams and Zyko here on the Ashe Braum, and it looks like in this situation, the AoE bot lane knows that they might be a bit outmatched and are going to opt for a bit of a more supportive playstyle here.
Yeah, a bit more utility with that Ashe. I believe we saw it back in game 2 of the day when Wildcard Black. Actually, no, we saw it in game 1 as well. Rock Tribe did play the Ashe. So Ashe seemingly coming back into meta here for NorQuest Esports tournament today. A lot of support. We've seen the utility coming through and the hawk shot. We cannot underestimate how impactful that hawk shot is to try and scout out potential ganks or traps here. So a lot of utility. I want to talk about the Braum for Zyko as well. Zyko, a new pickup for AOE as well, but has been doing absolutely great for the team. And the Braum is going to be able to counter that Varus pick from Arrow to a certain extent. Piercing Arrow, the piercing part of it is not going to work against Braum's Unbreakable. So one of the big things about Varus's poke is that you can get it through, landed on the squishies and something you can't fight. We've seen that happen throughout the game, throughout the day a couple of times already. Against that Braum, that shouldn't be the case. If Braum eats that piercing arrow, he's going to still be fairly healthy. He's going to be fairly safe. Just needs to build some armor there. And then the poke doesn't work. AoE gets to serve threaten, gets to set up their zone, and gets to try and control these neutral objectives.
Zyko has been a player that has been very comfortable so far on these more melee but defensive supports. His two most played champions are Thresh and Braum. Both serve a similar purpose as to be that kind of beefy frontliner that can also disengage and help peel for sketch dreams down in the bottom lane, and he's going to need to do a whole lot of that going up against a Varus Leona. Have a whole lot of damage in the early game, a whole lot of all-in potential as well, considering the summoner spell choice of Daption. And so Zyko on this Braum, definitely, as you mentioned, going to be crucial here. And as we're just loading on to Summoner's Rift, we have a bit of delay here as the players will get into game in just a moment. So want to take a moment to thank our sponsor here at Explore Edmonton. Edmonton is a catalyst for change, and we're not just talking about the change you find in your sofa. Our dream team will work with yours to take your vision and turn it into an unforgettable one for your delegates with creative solutions, a can-do attitude, and a citywide network of doers and makers eager to roll up their sleeves and get things done. If you want to find out more, go to exploreedmonton.com. And as we go back a little bit to this game, let's talk about some of the implications, RMC, that this might have for the rest of this tournament. Wildcard Red and AOE Esports, while they're both locked in for proving ground spots already, want to, I feel like at this point, the main focus of them entering an event like the NorQuest Esports Series is either for some extra practice, some extra scrim time, competitive play, or for that cash prize. And so getting that extra higher seeding with the victory here is definitely going to be important.
What? Grapes, you're telling me they didn't come in here just so that they could redo the EGL finals?
It was fate. What? It was fate. I take it back. Absolutely. You're right.
Has to be that. But that aside, a lot of it will be practice as well, right? Just making sure you're on top of meta, because these two teams already qualified for Proving Grounds. They're not playing in the Tier 1 tournament. So they've got a long break coming ahead of them here. And they want to make sure that, they continue practicing together. And the NorQuest series this time, well, and even the last time, the level really has gone up. We said that when we started the day, that the NorQuest Esports series has been getting better and better. Today, in this particular series, it's going to be incredibly high pace. Like we said, like these teams are finalists. These are T2 teams. So they're just wanting to get as much quality practice in as they can. And whether they win this game or not doesn't change that. They're probably both going to qualify. Whoever wins this guarantees a qualification into tomorrow here. And on top of that, even if you do lose, you're still playing one of the 3-1 teams after this.
Hello?
Which is a huge, sort of advantage. It's still very competitive, and the game should still be close and good practice.
I had the opportunity to talk to Arrow after the wildcard versus AOE finals, and I asked him what this team and what they were planning to do between the break. And I think an event like this at NorQuest, trying to get some extra practice against some of these top teams, is going to be really valuable for them, as they have a decent amount of downtime before they really need to get back and really hardcore grind once again in Proving Grounds. So you want to make sure you don't lose that momentum that you had, and getting some wins here in this event definitely going to be super big. On the other side, AOE, of course, definitely want to be that factor. They want to be that difference maker in this tournament, and also just prove that they are worthy of taking down Wildcard Red after the finals.
Yeah, for sure here. But you know what, Grapes, I just want to get onto the Rift right away, and I cannot wait for these teams to really clash against each other here. We talk so much hype, we hype so much up, and I want to see a level 1. In the last couple of games, we've not seen level 1s, and a lot of it's because, the picks aren't right, but there's a Leona, there's a Braum. Both of them are great for level 1 invades.
We are here on to the Rift. Wildcard Red, despite the name, will be on your blue side, while AOE Esports will be taking red. Important to note that this game, both these teams already locked for playoffs, I believe, so just a matter of seeding at this point. Also, for that pride, this is the EGL Summer Showdown Finals rematch between Wildcard and AOE RMC, I know you're looking for that early level 1 invade. We see some pings all over the map, but for the most part, we see some recalls and some sweeper purchases. Doesn't look like we're going to get too much early action to start us off.
One thing I do want to note, Grapes, is the wards into that bot lane push from both sides here. Remember how we were just talking about the fact that Leona and Braum are both great at invades? And the same thing that makes them good at level 1 invades also just makes them generally good at level 1. And you don't want to be walking into these guys here. So both of them drop in the wards, switching out to trinkets as well here. They want to clear vision. And to me, if your supports are looking to clear the vision that early, then you want the junglers to come in. Both junglers starting top side here. And oh, the bot laners are in at the exact same time.
And they're going to know when they walk in. They know that a fight is imminent at this point, and with both junglers starting at their top sides, here it goes. Winter's Bite already landed onto Dashin, but Shield of Daybreak will stun up Zyko. At the end of the day, it was a trade that we were super excited to see, RMC, but just 200 health gone on both the supports.
I'm so excited, Graves. It's still hilarious watching them go for it. Kinda, yeah. It does count as level 1. And the fact that the wards went down at the exact same time. So both teams knew the wards were there. And it comes down to the fact that Braum is just a little bit stronger in those early levels here. I mean, you've got Hill of Blades Varus that should outtrade the Ashe. So the difference comes down to the supports.
Exactly. And already we saw that in that last game that Braum over Leona has that significant advantage in terms of the early levels, in terms of damage and stacking that passive up alongside the extra crowd control of Ashe. That volley doing a decent amount of poke to get AOE an early advantage here in this lane. But as we saw before, the Leona definitely capable of some engages of their own. And with these players on their computers, it's important to note that you can get your own computer with the sponsor here, Memory Express, Canada's premier destination for computer products since 1996, with 14 stores across Canada. They're ready to serve you in-store and online. Check them out at memoryexpress.com.
Smooth, Grapes. Very smooth. Junglers are making tracks in the jungles right now, and I want to keep our eye a little bit more on Winston rather than RBM here, because the Volibear ganks early on are much more impactful. You have hard CC built in, you do move a little bit faster, and you can see that the call instantly came out that, okay, roughly around now, Winston should be around the bot side. Let's get that defensive vision out into the tri-bush so that we don't get ganked, but Winston wasn't looking bot. He was looking mid.
You got the clear first. RBM still on the blue buff, which means that Wildcard Red will have the priority around this bottom lane Rift Scuttler. The question is, do they even want it? They spot out RBM on the ground. Instead of going for that aggressive invade, just going to take what they got, take that bot lane Scuttle, and secure an early advantage here for Winston.
I think slight mistiming there. Winston's looking to see maybe I can get the blue buff as well. As it stands, though, they're going to be fine. And now Winston can potentially double buff RBM here. Faisal did go back to base, but picked up a cull. So that's not combat stats in lane, and means that that 2v2, if it were to happen, wouldn't really be in favor of the Diana.
Yeah, this is an interesting matchup here. Faisal on this Trundle into the Tahm Kench. And honestly, RMC, I'm surprised that we're seeing it in this game and not in the last, because Alorum is a player that we have seen a lot of Trundle gameplay out of, especially into some of these tank matchups. So it looks like Faisal got a little bit of inspiration from his former opponent, taking that troll up into the top lane to match it up against Brandini. And it's kind of a different way to counter this Tahm Kench than we saw from Faisal in the last game with the Karma, instead going for a bit more offensive here with the tank shred of the Trundle.
To be fair, Faisal picked the Karma first last time, so couldn't quite pull off the same thing, but definitely something to keep in mind. I mean, these picks are somewhat situational, right? Tom can be blinded, but Trundle really has to look at who the opponent is. He does best into tankier champions, not into duelists. If you were to pick a Fiora or something, then the Trundle pick really isn't going to look anywhere near as good. And actually, even now so far, we've not seen the Trundle really come online. You don't pick it necessarily for the pre-6. At 6 is when you get a little bit more kill threat, a little bit more kill pressure. You need a couple of items here. Pretty quiet early game so far, though, and the jungle ganks haven't quite come through yet.
Yeah, and I'm surprised that Winston hasn't tried to make some more impactful plays. Might be looking for one here in the mid lane as we speak, though. Bradley has gone a bit forward. Darkwings will miss that face breaker, but RBM's here to say no thanks. We don't want this engage. And instead, Winston, who's on this early game champion like the Volibear, will go another minute without any kills.
And I'm actually kind of happy for Darkwings that Facebreaker didn't quite land there. I don't think you win that 2v2. Again, Diana really needs 6, really needs Moonfall to be meaningful here. If not, you're relying on the set to do the bulk of the work, but with Volibear there, it's a 2v1.5. RBM coming in.
Here they go. Ultimate's available for both the mid laners, but Bradley has not used his yet. There's the Vanguard Edge, getting the heals, getting the
No
kills.
way!
Bradley gets this one. He's gonna get 2 with the passive stacks. Bradley on the mid lane. Aurelia will take down RBM and Darkwings in the 1v2.
Okay, Grapes, you were saying, Bradley versus Darkwings. Maybe it's easier for Darkwings now that RBM's back. Nope, didn't make a difference. That was a 1v2, and Bradley played it to perfection here. I was just telling you after last game, I don't think Aurelia is that amazing. I think it's great. It's great, but I don't know if it's blind pickable. I'm wrong. I take that back. Bradley makes it blind pickable.
Second game in a row where we've seen the Aurelia do fine into this set, a matchup that is typically associated in favor of this set, but is just Bradley, or should I say, I remember Dylan Sherville, one of the analysts for Wildcard, was trying to think of a name. I think it's Baker, or for Bradley and Baker combined. So that's kind of what we saw there in the mid lane. So doing some really great stuff here is the Wildcard mid laner. And it looks like Wildcard are going to try to make some more plays, this time on the bottom side of the map. Daption and Winston are here. Stormbringer is available. Flash forward with the Zenith Blade goes Daption. Winston might not even need the ult to secure a kill, as Sketchstream is on the wrong side of the map. Arrow's going to finish him off with his namesake, and Zyko is on the run, but not for much longer. Daption makes it 4-0 in favor of Wildcard Red.
Top side as well. Brandini just making sure RBM doesn't comfortably take this. Really solid gank. I've been calling for a Winston gank for a while there. I'm glad you made it happen, because Volibear does need to get some early impact. Damage does fall off a little bit later into the game. I mean, Divine Sunderer helps to nullify that a little bit, but not the entirety of it. And now suddenly Wildcard Red are up 4-0. Darkwings once again getting poked.
Aurelia is one of the only champions that, if you're in the wave, is actually bad for you, because with Bradley getting those stacks on the passive just unlocks so much damage while he queues throughout the wave. And so Darkwings has to back away despite that huge wave crashing in, which allows Bradley to set up a pseudo freeze, allowing the wave to stay in an advantageous spot for himself. As we hit the 8-minute mark, the Rift Herald has spawned, which means that Winston is headed towards his top side, but the answer might actually be mid. Here comes Daption as well. Not going to be able to get the range here for the Zenith Blade, and Darkwings will get out with his life for now.
Good read from Zyko as well, to know to just roam up right away to match here. But the aftermath is what's important here. We see Zyko just going back down, was by the way spotted by that control ward in the river. Meanwhile, Daption just walks up, helps to secure the Herald, and Wildcard Red, they're starting to snowball this here. 4 kills. If you add the plates on from those turrets, or even worse, God forbid, they get a kill and then drop Herald, that could be first brick as well, and then at that point, gold lead would be 3,000-4,000 hit.
Arrow using that ultimate preemptively, as he might have smelled something suspicious going on around him. He's going to forfeit this wave for now and allow Sketchstreams and the rest of AOE to make a bit of a play, get some plates for themselves, as Daption was on the roam, but now with the Leona back, Arrow can maybe step up a little bit more. RBM is here with the Moonfall though, and instead will just be AOE backing out, taking that plate. But here comes Bradley. They've walked right into the trap. Moonfall's going to land onto 2. It's a decent amount of damage. Bradley's ticking low, but he has the healing. Will finally go down to Sketchstreams on the Ashe. He's raining in the arrows, sticking down really low, but Arrow will flash forward for the double kill. Darkwings is fighting Daption on the other side, but here comes Winston as well.
Zyko.
The river is a bloodbath, and it's working towards Wildcard Red. Winston secures the kill onto Zyko, and Darkwings will fall as well. Everyone has fallen twice for AOE, except for Faisal in the top lane, making it 8-1 in favor of Wildcard.
I know the game didn't say it, but that was a triple kill for Arrow. He did manage to pick up 3. It just took a little longer here. And it's not looking good for AOE Esports here. You could argue that, hey, not having RBM really hurt them, but in this case, they do have RBM, and it's still really hurting them. Granted, they do have skilling. Trundle skills amazingly well. Diana, one of the best skilling junglers. Ashe does really well in the late game as well. But I don't think they're going to get there at the rate they're going. Herald still hasn't been dropped yet. None of the turrets have necessarily been taken away, but the dive is going to get worse. Winston has Stormbringer as well. Those turrets won't save you even if they're standing.
There's just so many threats here for Wildcard Red. You have Bradley, who had such an impactful early game 1v2 in the mid lane, but after he went down, it was just the Arrow show. putting in those piercing arrows, getting that triple kill, as you said. Now with that Serpent's Fang will make Darkwings' Haymaker essentially obsolete. And on the other side, you still have Winston on the Volley Bear going for that Divine Thunderer. Still have Houdini Brandini on this Tahm Kench, going to be super tanky. And now this Wildcard just making plays all over the map. Daption's going to go forward, land the Solar Flare onto RBM just to get the slow. But here comes the Stormbringer of Winston. Flash away from RBM will save his life, but with the Dragon spawning in 10 seconds, essentially secures the objective here for Red.
You know what, AOE, this is your opportunity right now, right? You burn a flash for 2 ultimates. I would take that before a major objective. Moonfall is back up and available for RBM here, and that's your big team fighting ultimate. For the side of Wildcard Red, you've literally only got the Chains of Corruption left here, and Winston is trying to make another play. I don't know if it's the right call.
RBM is here, lands a 2-man Moonfall. Is it enough damage, though? They will chunk out Winston. He's an auto away from dying, but he will not get that hit inside. Chain of Corruption buys so much time from Arrow. Teleports are in from Darkwings. Does have the Showstopper available, but the Rift Herald recall from Winston almost was enough, but instead, it's just going to be Wildcard in this wild goose chase. Darkwings is going. RBM is going. He's going to dash forward, take down his opposing jungler, but here comes the teleport on the other side from Bradley, who has the Vanguard's edge, has the flash. Will he end up using it? RBM's going to dash forward on the Daption. Finally gets that double kill. He will die in the process as Arrow picks up his 5th of the game, but it's a good play from AOE as they go 2 for 1 under the Wildcard base.
Worth grapes? I'm not sure how we calculate this here. True. I mean, it is a 2 for 1. Ooh, top side. Faisal gets spat out under turret, but should be fine. Ooh, had to actually flash.
Don't know if he did. The Subjugate was making him pretty tanky, but looks like Faisal is going to be better safe than sorry in this regard. Still has about a 10 CS lead over Brandini for now, but with the wave in this spot will mean that Brandini will probably have a decent shot at, getting that lead back. And now he's actually chasing Faisal away from the lane. All of a sudden, Tahm Kench is in control here.
Faisal wasn't chased away. He just walked towards the other honey fruit grapes.
Oh, of course. That's exactly what was planned.
Yeah, efficiency. However, what isn't efficient is going to be the dragon going down. AOE had the priority on the dragon, but they opted for the dive, and that was why I wasn't sure if it was worth or not. You give up that control over the dragon, and sure, RBM gets kills for it, which is great, but 2 dragons, and they're stacking Mountain Drake as well right now. That's exactly what Wildcard Red want to get. More tanky on this Tahm Kench, on this Volibear, on this Leona, even on this Irelia for dives.
And they'll have an accelerated path to that soul if they so desire. Now up 2-0 after picking up that Ocean. RBM and Zyko making a roam towards this top side. And at the end of the day, the gold is only about 3.5 in K in favor of Wildcard Red. But for AOE, their win conditions are very much reduced in this situation. The primary damage dealers you have to rely on at this point is RBM on this Diana with that 2 kills, but even he does not have that Night Harvester or Protobelt in inventory just yet, so it's just the waiting game right now for AOE, trying to do their best to stay alive for the time being.
The good news is, for the side of AOE, is a little bit about where the gold is right now. As I say that, bot side.
Oh yeah, looks like Bradley's going aggressive here onto Darkwings. It's pretty scary here for this set at the moment. Bradley is just so strong, already with that Blade of the Ruined King in inventory, and now might try to catch out RBM here. He's on a ward, but he's going to Blade Surge forward, not going to get the Gromp, and all of a sudden, Bradley has to be on the run. Flash Facebreaker, Flash, Showstopper from Darkwings will secure the kill onto the Aurelia, who goes just a little bit too over-aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, topside, they are going to lose a turret for this. Faisal was forced back by the gank, but it's absolutely massive that they managed to kill Bradley here mid. He's getting kind of dicey, but arrow didn't quite land there. I wanted to point out gold differences, because we say that there is about a 3.5 or 3k gold difference, but if we toggle individual gold, all of that sitting in the mid lane right now, right? 2,100 on Bradley. And guess what? Bradley just got killed in a 2v1. Darkwings, Set is a fairly low econ laner. He doesn't need all the gold. If he gets it, great, he's unkillable. But even when he's low, his base stats still make him a threat.
Arrow's looking for a play here. That's the Unbreakable that we were talking about from Zyko, canceling out that big damage arrow coming out from Arrow. And now, looks like AOE have tried to make some sort of aggressive play onto this Varus, who does have that big juicy shutdown on him, but it's just too hard for any of them to engage with the tools that Wildcard had.
a lot of it is going to rely on this Enchanted Crystal Arrow. Either that or RBM going in. But RBM needs that Moonfall to guarantee the kill on this Varus, who's already super fed. I don't know if Brandini really wants this, honestly.
Winston's in the area, but yeah, as you said, RMC, gonna be hard for this Tahm Kench to take on Faisal in a 1v1. Important to note, already has that Bramble Vest and the Ninja Tabbies in order in here. Gonna pop the Ghost with Winston on the way. They're gonna try to go for a kill onto this Trundle. Abyssal Dive forward will get the knockup, and here comes the Bear Subjugate forward already. And RBM is here as well, so is Darkwings, which means that Wildcard will try their best to get out. The question is, will they be able to? The Tongue Lashes will do a decent amount of zoning from Brandini, but here's another pillar coming out from Faisal. Abyssal Dive will not get canceled, and Wildcard Red get out scot-free.
Facebreaker just an inch too short there, almost managed to cancel it, and that's a lot of resources expended. The turnaround though,
arrows on the way as well. AOE might try to look for this, but Faisal did end up going for that reset. Gonna come back in with the teleport. Stormbringer forward from Winston, and they're doing so much damage already. Haymaker does a decent amount, but RBM is already dead. Arrow does not get touched in that fight, and Faisal is the only damage dealer left alive on AOE, but it's just an absolute slaughter. A double kill for Winston, a triple kill for Winston, and Wildcard Red go 4 for 0 because Sketchstream was not even there, going for the Krug at the moment.
I don't understand, Grapes. How did Winston not die? Several occasions that fight, he dropped so low. And you could see AOE Esports was throwing everything in the kitchen sink to try and find the one kill. That they couldn't find it is absolutely brutal. And oh my goodness, the gold lead, it's grown even bigger. It's an 8,000 gold lead with a 9 kill advantage for Wildcard Red, with Shelly pushing in on an inhibitor turret.
I mean, it's just brutal right now for AOE. Looks like with or without a jungler, not really the biggest difference maker at this point. They're about to drop their 4th straight game to Wildcard Red if Wildcard are able to end up closing it out. And it's looking more and more likely as we speak. As you mentioned before, RMC, about a 7,500 gold lead in favor of Wildcard, and they're going to keep going to make it more. Arrow is 6-0-5, doesn't even have the mythic because he values these other items too much in more. And now with this Mountain Dragon spawning, the pressure is right back on AoE's side.
And for Wildcard Red, they are so far ahead, especially for this Varus, for Arrow, that they just need to siege. Anytime they siege, they're fine, and just put bodies in front to tank up any damage. That's exactly what they did top side. They can do that anywhere else.
Dodges away from the Abyssal Dive, but Faisal is trying to do his best zoning with the pillar, but Mountain Dragon has already been started. AoE would be fools to try and go for a 5v5 at this objective. Instead, they're going to give it up. Soul point for Wildcard Red, and things are looking grimmer and grimmer by the minute.
And they're trying to push it on this mid lane turret. This is no safer than the Dragon right now.
Solar Flare doesn't get the stun, but Brandini will onto Psycho. Chain of Corruption getting onto Darkwings, and is doing the AoE work all over the fight. Darkwings gets instantly deleted, as is RBM. And here comes Winston on the Volley Bear, flashing forward to try and get the chop onto Sketchstreams. He will go on a rampage onto the Ashe, and all of a sudden, Faisal once again is the only damage dealer left alive. Snipe from downtown is Arrow, getting another kill on the Varus, and it's just Zyko versus the world, and Winston is going to make the world win here in just a couple of seconds. He'll do his best to zone, but RC, we all know how this ends.
Not like this! Well, that was brutal to watch, Grapes. I will say, that Serpent's Fang did so much work. Darkwing's shield, I almost didn't see it come up because it got popped so quickly. And I was thinking for a second, okay, Serpent's Fang that early feels a little overzealous because who's got shields? Set and Diana. That's it. Brom's shield is not a shield in the sense of mechanics, so doesn't work against the Unbreakable. But I didn't think it was worth it. I take that back. It's doing so much work, and that Haymaker just isn't working for Darkwings right now. For the side of AOE Esports, their win condition hinges on one thing. Can you kill Arrow? And can you kill Arrow before he's chunked half your team? If you cannot do that, you do not win any fights. And looking at Arrow's positioning right now, there's a reason why he's 8-0-7. The team doesn't have to stand back and protect him. We've not seen a single defensive devour come through from Brandini to keep Arrow alive. Arrow just positions better and is never in danger of being killed. The autos are secondary to him just being able to output those piercing arrows.
Arrows just proving time and time again why he is such a highly touted player here, whether it be in Korea, NA, or here in the amateur circuit. Just proving his worth as we speak. Sitting here with that 1,000 gold shutdown, working towards either that Serpent's Fang, or sorry, either that Prowler's Claw or the Duskblade. Regardless of what actually ends up coming out, we know that those are going to hit. Look at that damage.
And that's one of your pseudo tanks as well. That's the problem. They don't have vision though, and they don't have a numbers advantage. Bradley getting caught up by the arrow.
Yeah, they got to look for a pick. This is the only way AOE can try to find a fight. The Vanguard's Edge does a good amount of zoning, and here they go. They shut down Bradley, but can they win the fight? Arrow is getting hit by Darkwing, and they take him down. And all of a sudden, only the tanks for Wildcard are alive. Winston has his on his, going to buy a little bit more time for himself. The Sketchstream is still raining in the arrows on the other side. Winston gets a kill onto Faisal before backing out. The Devour is huge from Brandini. Darkwings almost has the Haymaker off of cooldown, but it's not going to happen just yet as Winston picks up a kill and RBM falls as well. Sketchstreams is the only one left alive. RMC, they got the 2 carries, but they still lose the fight. What is going on?
What is going on? It's a 12k goal lead. Great. Sketchstreams was free firing on Winston, and Winston was regenerating health through Divine Sunderer. That is how far behind Sketchstreams is right now. The Rage Blade is all good and well, but I feel like before you get that Rage Blade, you need something to amplify. Wits End, Blade of the Ruin King, even if you need it. But just that and the Immortal Shield Bow by itself right now isn't doing enough. And they don't care that they don't have Bradley, that they don't have Arrow. These 3 tanks are going to burn down Baron. It might take them a minute or 2, but they will do it.
And nobody from AOE is really here to contest, and so it doesn't matter how fast you take the Baron because you get it for free regardless. And RMC, Arrow died and still has a shutdown. That's how strong and how much power and how much gold he has right now on this Varus, finishing up that Prowler's Claw and up about 3,000 in gold onto his opposing bot laner. Things are looking up and up for Arrow. They get the Baron and potentially will look to close the game here on this final push.
I love it. That maxed out bounty still has some left over. I do want to point out the Prowler's Claw a little bit, talk a little bit more about it, because we are seeing Duskblade more often being the item of choice on Varus. It gives you a little bit more additional poke, a bit more burstiness when your spells hit, and it gives you the ability haste, whereas Duskblade, Prowler's Claw did get nerfed a little bit in terms of its raw lethality, but hold up, are we going to get a fight here?
It's so scary for AoE at this point. Ultimates are available for everybody on Wildcard Red, but they're going to go on onto Winston first. Pops the Zonias, but Arrow is still left untouched. There's a showstopper forward. Haymaker does a decent amount of damage. Darkwings is staying alive with the Gore Drinker, but he will finally fall. Winston will use that ultimate defensively, and Daption is getting hammered on by Sketchstreams, but he's just so tanky. They just will not die. Double kill for Arrow, who is still alive in the back line, and that's another kill going over to Bradley. RBM has had enough, and so has Wildcard. They will prove that the finals was not a fluke. They will prove that the Triple Crown has been intact, and they will take the win over AOE Esports in just about 24 minutes.
Oh, yeah, this is just, final push in. Maybe we can find some kills here. I mean, Sketchstreams.
I think the only kills are going to be in favor of Wildcard. Boom! Goes, oh, Sketchstreams is alive. Here comes Darkwing. Nexus Tower 2 is under fire. I mean, if they delay this game, they're just delaying the inevitable at this point. RBM is still disconnected from the game. The question is, does it really come back in time? Like, Chain of Corruption is going to land onto Darkwing to try and stall. And it doesn't look like Wildcard are ending this game just yet, but they might after this. Haymaker does a decent amount of damage once again, but Darkwings will fall for what seems like the 10th time this game. Bradley dashing forward. He knows he has no fear because Winston is here on his side. The Nexus is under fire. Arrow, he'll just end the game by himself. 24 minutes in. Wildcard take the game and go up 4-0.
Oh, Graves, this is how we know it's a real EGL Finals rematch here. RBM abandoned his team once again. I'm sorry, RBM. Love you, buddy. No, for real, though. It didn't matter, like right? This. At that point in time, Wildcard Red were truly well ahead. And it wasn't just the bot lane. Yes, Arrow was absolutely unstoppable, right? But we saw Arrow got killed. Didn't matter. Winston was far ahead enough. Brandini was far ahead enough. The counters didn't quite seem to work out. Irelia didn't get countered by the set. Bradley was still able to pop off in lane. Tom Kench wasn't countered by the Trundle, not really. I mean, Faisal did a good job, but going even against Tom Kench is not good enough. And even later into the game, Brandini's initiates or follow-ups on Dapshin's impeccable initiates were beautiful to watch. And just when you've got that Tom Kench and Volibear in your face, sure, even if you kill Arrow, you have to spend so much to do it that you have no damage by the end of it. RBM was dropping dead beginning of every single fight. 273. Considering the moonfalls that came through, the sheer lack of assists kind of tells you that they just didn't have damage to finish off those engages.
Yeah, and while they did put a couple of kills into RBM towards the early to mid stages of the game, it just seemed like Wildcard Red got that lead early on and just continued to run over it like throughout the rest of the game, and it just ended it in that quick victory. And a large part of that was Bradley on the Aurelia. Didn't have the prettiest KD at the end because he got caught out a couple of times, but his ability to go for that 1v2 opened up so many possibilities for Winston to roam around the jungle, make a lot of these plays, and with Arrow on the other side getting some kills as well, it just seemed doomed from the start here.
Little bit. And despite the fact that Bradley was dying quite a lot, his job was just to remove the carries. And oftentimes Bradley was trading 1 for 2. He dies, but he gets RBM and he gets sketch streams as well. So if you trade 1 for 2 like that and there's no carries left, your job is done. Sometimes getting Faisal into the bargain is just extra on top of that. And for teams here, NorQuest Esports Series, we kind of knew it coming into this, that Wildcard Gaming was the first seed, but they've just confirmed it. And everybody needs to start studying and figuring out, how do we beat this team? Because I don't have answers for you.
I don't think anybody has answers. I mean, they just seem completely unstoppable throughout their entire Proving Grounds run here this summer. It doesn't really seem like anybody has had the answer. The closest we got, I think, was a 3-2 against EGP. Other than that, it's just been pure domination from Wildcard Red as they go up 4-0 into this NorQuest Esports Series bracket, and we'll look to make it 5 in the next round. We're going to take a short break, but before we do so, want to thank our sponsors here at NorQuest really quick. We got our good friends at Pepsi who are supporting us here. Make sure to try that Pepsi Zero Sugar for all the great taste. I said it right this time, with 0 of the sugar. And also, huge shout out to some of our sponsors as well: Alberta Innovates, ESIO, and ATB. We're going to take a short break once again, but the final prelim of the day is just around the corner. We'll see you then.